National Inboard Championship Series presents the 11th Annual Burley Regatta, sponsored by Mercury Performance Products. The race never stops. By Ford Power Products, suppliers of marine-based engines, and by the Idaho Department of Tourism. Welcome to Idaho and some of the most beautiful scenery in the Pacific Northwest. It's a land of breathtaking beauty with deep canyon gorges, mountain peaks, and 2,000 lakes. Recreation and water sport activities abound any time of year. Skiing, boating, camping, hunting, and fishing are all popular and bring those seeking fun and sun to this largely undiscovered state. Throughout our show today, you'll get a chance to see some of this great state's natural beauty as well as exciting boat racing action. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Michael along with Mike Butler. We welcome you today to some great boat racing coming your way. And Mike, let's take a look at some of the three classes we'll be seeing.
Steve, I'm real glad to be here. The classes we're going to be seeing today are the K Racing Runabout, Formula Mercruiser 7-liter, and Formula Mercruiser 5-liter.
Well, we're at an elevation of 4,000 feet here in Idaho, and it's a very unique race course. And down to describe it to us is our man in the pits, who will be watching all the action this afternoon along with us. And that is Wally Shaver.
Steve, the Burley course is one of the most unique ones on the entire NICS Tour this year. First of all, there's an island in the middle. When the drivers are preparing and taking their 5-minute warm-up laps, they are not allowed to cut across. This will affect on how they start, and especially how they prepare at the milling point in the final minute. Secondly, the turns are extremely sharp turns compared to a lot of the wide ones that they're familiar with. Also, the course is shorter than most courses that they race on. The water goes downstream, so when they're coming down the back stretch, they're going with the water, and they can increase their speeds at that time. Coming into turn number 2, they can take a little bit of a wider turn, but then they run into some choppy water because there's a cement wall on the spectator side. The backstretch side does not have a cement wall. It's land on each side, so it has a little more shock ability to absorb the waves.
Steve, the first class in the water today and the fastest will be the KRRs. They've got their biggest field ever at 21 entries.
Talking about fast, Mike, these boats can go well over 140 miles an hour. They're just 17 feet in length, and these boats will really fly and excite the fans this afternoon. And Wally Shaver down in the pits has cornered KRA President Richard Thompson, who will tell us about the class.
We've never had 4 qualifying heats before or this many boats register for an event. And with the weather and everything, turned out today to be just gorgeous. It's going to be one heck of a day.
Well, the great weather has turned out record-breaking crowds here in Burley, and with such a large driver's field, the KRR class ran 4 elimination heats on Saturday, and posting the fastest time in heat number 1 was Harry Christensen, owner Glenn Ward driving Longshot. Finishing second was Bob Long, who also owns his boat, America 1. Owner-driver Mario Vaughn in Tradition finished third. And Bob Guidetti driving America 2, he also the owner, finished fourth. Duff Daly, a big surprise, did not finish. He won the overall race in Chattanooga. And Mike, give us the results here in the second heat.
Well, Steve, Billy Paget out of La Habra, California in the K190 at Daytona Hall. Rolling Thunder, it's owned by Richard Thompson, was first. Second was Roger Glover out of Reno, Nevada in K77. It's a Revenge Hull. El Cid, it's owned by Mike Leach. Third was Daryl Dockery out of Phoenix in a Biesmeyer. And fourth was John Guthrie out of Cerritos, California in K16, a Spitfire. That's called the Shocker. And fifth was Steve Williams out of Albuquerque, New Mexico in K52, Plum Crazy. That's a Daytona Hull.
And the fast man around in heat number 3 was Gordon Jennings out of Westminster, California, driving Blue Thunder. Finishing second was Paul Grishar out of West Covina, California, driving Blown Circuit. Third was John Hart IV, driving the Natural Light Special out of West Jordan, Utah. And finishing fourth was Mike Newitz in Minuteman. And fifth was Dale Hernandez from West St. Paul, Minnesota, driving a Biesmeyer boat and driving the Money Monster.
Top honors in the fourth heat went to George Nordling, also in a Biesmeyer hull. Hyperkinetic, Lloyd Hamilton was the owner. Second was George Woods out of Sumner, Washington in K39 Revenge, owned by Butch Jensen. Third was Ron Mad Dog Bolton in K9, a Spitfire hull. Fourth was Mike Patterson out of Van Nuys, California, also in a Biesmeyer. Dark Side of the Moon. 5th was Chuck Kraft out of Bakersfield in Valkyrie.
Well, that was the final field for the 4 qualifying heats that get set to go racing, and there's some of the great scenery we have here for you at Burley. We'll be back with the first main heat of the KRR Racing Runabouts when we return right after this. Welcome back to Burley, Idaho, as the fans settle in for some racing action. Let's first of all take a look at the heats that were run yesterday for the 5-liter class, and they've got some interesting engines, Mike.
Yeah, Steve, some of the boats out here will be running the Ford 302 block, or some, there'll be a few of them with the 305 Chevy, and there's even a couple with the old Chrysler 273.
Well, the fast man yesterday in heat number 1 was David Leach, driving Buccaneer out of Federal Way, Washington. In second was Wally Johnston, driving Mariner out of Helena, Montana. Jerry Dillinger from Three Forks, Montana, drove Agitator. And finishing 4th was last year's national champion Pat Patterson, driving the Pepsi Cola machine. And rounding things off here in 5th was Russ Phillips, driving Outer Limits. And Mike, let's take a look at the second heat of action.
The second heat win went to Gene Bird out of Polson, Montana. It's a Jones Hull, Locomotion's the name. Second was Richard Hallett out of Bellflower, California in E21, Mr. R. Third went to Ken Dryden out of Seattle, Washington in E58, Terminator. It's a Jones Hull. With a name like that, it's going to be tough to beat. And 4th place went to Doug Woodward out of Kent, Washington in E76. That's a Carrollson Hull, Country Store's the name. Steve, you might note the letter designations. E is for Formula Mercruiser 5-liter, F and J is for the 6 and 7-liter class, and K is for the KRRs.
Thanks, Mike. The local community of Burley, including the Chamber of Commerce, has made this event bigger and better each year. And down in the pits, Wally Schaefer has the mare.
Ken, this is the 11th annual Burley Regatta that you've had out here, but it's a little different setup this year because you're running some hydroplanes here. How has the response been from the community?
Well, the response has been excellent. We were favored with a community that this really supports these kind of events. Almost anything that's going to benefit the community, everybody is 100% behind it. We've had excellent community support.
You see the parade lap as we get set for heat number 1 of the main K Racing Runabout class this afternoon. The 8 fastest boats here as they come by in front of the fans. Let's take a look at the lineup, Mike.
Steve, heat 1 shapes up like this. Ron Bolton in K9. Ron's the KRA High Points champion of 1981, 82, and 83. Harry Christensen in K462. Harry's a 12-year racing veteran. And Roger Glover's in K77, the El Cid out of Reno, Nevada. Paul Grishar in K151, the Blown Circuit. John Hart driving the Natural Light in K75. George Nordling in the K200, Hyperkinetic. George, the world record holder in the Pro Comp class. And Billy Pageant, the K190, Rolling Thunder. Rounding out the field, we have George Woods in K39 Outlaw. George is a 19-year racing veteran, 13 in the Ks. Shortly, you're going to see George running in the Unlimited Hydroplanes.
And the fans are on their feet as 8 of the most skilled cave racing runabout drivers anywhere in the world start down for that front straightaway. They'll all be trying to make the start before the clock hits 0, and here they come. And the drivers build up their speed to over 140 miles an hour as they come down for the start-finish line, and we're underway. As the drivers get in their lanes, and now as the veterans tell you, it's 90% of the race, getting it right here through turn number 1. The drivers looking for that clear water to be able to pull out a lead and get away from their competition.
Official word, Steve, is that all boats are legal. It looks like George Nordling is out there in front right now, made it through the first turn first.
Well, George Nordling, who has won the Western Divisional Championships back in 85 and 86, he's done it 2 years in a row. They claim he has the lightest boat on his circuit. But a couple of other drivers to keep an eye on is Ron Bolden in K9, and also George Woods, a 19-year racing veteran who has 13 years in this class. A Hall of Champions winner in 2 different times.
Steve, we have a problem. It looks like K77, Roger Glover spun out in turn 3.
Glover looks like he fell into a hole, and he tried to take the inside route through turn number 3, and all that's done now is really slowed him up, and it's going to really put some dampers on him trying to move up in this race.
Yeah, that'll happen, Steve. He tried to take the inside around the course, and going through that rough chop, the boat hooked and took to the inside of the course. Couldn't help it.
Good shot there of Bill Paget, who's in second place right now out of Santa Ana, California, as you see him come whistling by on the outside now.
That's George Woods and K39 on the inside. And he took Paget's wake. He almost lost it.
And he lost valuable time, as you can see Paget pulling away from him. So that battle for second, which was close a second ago, has really stretched out after George Woods made a mistake as he tried to take the inside route and ran out of room. And now he's paying the price for it.
Notice how high that driver sits in those flat bottom hulls. That's a 1,250 horse firecracker he's sitting in front of, burning nitromethanol.
These drivers have reached speeds of well over 140 miles an hour on a straightaway, but what about the corners, Mike?
It gets pretty rough in the corners, Steve, when these boats start to take the turn, especially if you get a few boats in there all at once.
And there's our leader, George Nordling, going around the final pin of heat number 1. Right behind him, Bill Paget. And third is George Woods as he takes the inside route coming around for the final turn himself. A close battle as Wood bounces the boat high in the air coming around down the front straightaway. And here comes our winner of the first main event for the K-Racing Runabouts here in Burley, Idaho. George Nordling driving for Lloyd Hamilton out of Forest Grove, Oregon. A dominating 5-second victory for Nordling, and Michael, it was quite a race.
I'll tell you what, Steve, George hit that starting clock right on the button, and he was out front right away, and he never had to look back.
In third place, George Woods gave it a run for second, but he just ran out of driving room.
Fourth went to Ron Bolton in Kelron Racing Special. Paul Gauchard in K151 was fifth, and John Hart, the fourth, in K75 finished out in the Natural Light Special.
And there's the final two positions. Roger Glover and El Cid, who spun out early in the event, and Harry Christensen, who didn't finish the race. So there's your winner of the first main event here for K-Racing Runabouts from Burley. We've got more exciting racing coming up when we return right after this. Welcome back to the banks of the beautiful Snake River here in Burley, Idaho for the 11th annual Burley Regatta. I'm Steve Michael along with Mike Butler, and we're getting set for one of the most popular classes in the APBA, the Formula Mercruiser 5 liters. And let's talk about it, Mike.
Well, Heat 1 in alphabetical order, we got Gene Bird in E161 Locomotion. Number 2 spot, we got Jerry Dillinger in E98 The Agitator. 3 goes to Ken Dryden in E58 The Terminator. And then we got Richard Hallett in E211, the Mr. R. Number 5 goes to Wally Johnston in E106, the Mariner. And David Leach is in E505, the Buccaneer.
Well, Mike, we'll keep an eye on David Leach. He's a rookie out of Federal Way, Washington, and his father has 33 years on this racing circuit and has really given him a lot of tips on how to do the start right. And here comes David Leach. And the question is, will he be there at the start line before the clock runs out, or will he make it right on time? He starts to slow up, and it looks like on the outside it's Jerry Dillinger who has grabbed the lead. So Leach, it looks like, jumped the gun.
I don't know, Steve. I think he just slowed down just before the start, and that allowed Dillinger to get by him.
Well, Dillinger has jumped off to a lead of about 3 seconds as they go through turns number 1 and 2. A great vantage point here from Burley, Idaho. A beautiful setting for the race here this afternoon, and a great crowd on hand. And as these boats power away on the back stretch, Mike, let's talk about their engines.
Well, new for this year, Steve, the Formula Mercruiser 5 liters are powered by the 302 Ford. Some may have the 305 Chevrolet, and some yet may have the 273 Chrysler.
Well, we're picking up great scenes down low as we watch them go into turns 3 and 4. Here on the front stretch, however, it's Jerry Dillinger, the man out of Three Forks, Montana, that has grabbed the lead. And here we're watching the battle back for third place against 3 other competitors as they battle through. David Leach, the rookie who had the original lead, has dropped back into second place at the moment. And he is battling with Ken Dryden, who is now on the inside as we watch the 3 boats go in a wall of spray in turns number 1 and 2. And Mike, as we watch these boats kick up such a large rooster tail, let's talk about how they develop this.
You'll notice as they go into the turn that wall of water that is thrown up is not all the propeller. It's the skid fin on the left-hand side of the boat. As they come out of the turn and accelerate down the straightaway, the propeller will lift the back of the boat, and that's where the rooster tail comes in, and as it lifts the back of the boat. Then as they're running down the straightaway and they set up for that turn, the rear of the boat will settle back into the water, and that skid fin will take over, throwing up that large wall of water.
With Jerry Dellinger in the lead, we come down to the final lap of this first heat here in the Formula Mercruiser 5 liters. The third lap coming up now. It's a tremendous battle for second place between David Leach, who's in second place, the rookie, Ken Dryden nipping at his heels, trying to make a move on the inside, and Gene Bird out of Polson, Montana, trying to make a move on the outsides. We watch them come down that front straightaway. Let's watch their strategy. How would you pin it up here, Mike?
Well, if I were David, I'd try to keep onto the inside to keep Dryden out, but it looks like he's floating out, and Dryden may get him on the inside.
And we keep an eye on the blue lead boat of David Leach as he starts to pull away. It looks like he's got the acceleration. But now we look on the inside, it looks like Ken Dryden in the white boat is starting to pick up the top end as we come back to our leader, Jerry Dellinger out of Three Forks, Montana, coming down. You see him bouncing on that water as he goes past the island in turns number 3 and 4. He's just one turn away now from picking up the checkered flag here in heat number 1. Now the big battle we watch as they go into the final turns here, the battle for second place. And it looks like this time, Mike, that it's Ken Dryden in the white boat that has pulled out a little bit of advantage on David Leach as Jerry Dellinger will come across to take the victory. But here is the battle of the race. And there is Ken Dryden, who picked up great strides as he pulls away from David Leach, who just barely trims out third place from Gene Bird as they go across the line. An exciting finish to the race.
Oh, that was a heck of a finish, Steve. Jerry's boat was running superb. I mean, that boat was totally aired out for the whole race. He got a beautiful start. He was right on the clock, and that race for second was fantastic.
Well, there you see the top 3 with Jerry Dellinger and his very happy owner, Franz Willig out of Missoula, Montana, as he picks up heat number 1 in Agitator. Ken Dryden finished in second, and David Leach, the rookie, with the Buccaneer, finished third. Gene Bird finished fourth, very close to third place, and David Leach. Then Richard Hallett from San Joaquino, California, finished fifth, and Wally Johnson rounded out the field, finishing in sixth place, the man out of Helena, Montana. Well, Mike, as the boats leave the race course and get set for heat number 2, we've got a chance to talk about a very unusual man who's a sponsor here at Burley. He gives out a donation of a $10,000 mink coat to the driver closest to the existing speed record in his class, and he's with Wally right now.
Steve, a lot of us have come to Burley, Idaho for the boat races, and the thing most commonly known about Idaho is the great fishing, the beautiful mountains, and of course the famous Idaho potatoes. But Lee Moyle is with us, and there's a lot more to Idaho than just the farming of potatoes, isn't there, Lee?
That's right. There is quite a large fish industry in this state. They produce probably 90% of the rainbow trout produced in America right here in Idaho. And we, with our mink, the mink kind of serve as a cleanup program. The mink consume all of the byproducts out of the Idaho rainbow trout industry. We take this it's in kind of a non-polluting way rather than throw the byproducts in the river or try to bury them or consume fuel to cook them. We bring the byproducts to the mink consume them, and we turn it into manure for fertilizer for the fields and fur coats for the ladies in the bigger cities.
Well, your family has been farming minks for 55 years now, and you've become one of the prominent mink farmers in the nation.
That's right. We've been in this for 55 years. We have 6 farms. They're all family-operated farms. They all are here in Idaho. We have a very nice climate for mink, good food resources. It is a good export business for Idaho. A lot of our skins are sold in Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, and Europe.
Well, Mike, I guess your wife wouldn't mind to have having a farmer like that next door to you.
No, Steve, I'm sure she wouldn't. She'd like a coat like that.
Well, we've got a chance now to get set for one of the most exciting classes here that are coming up in Burley, the Formula Mercruiser 7 liters, right after this. Welcome back to the state of Idaho for the 11th annual Burley Regatta, and we're getting set for the 2,000-pound Formula Mercruiser 7-liter hydros. And let's talk a little bit about this class, Mike.
Steve, these $30,000 and up rigs are 20 feet long. They got a kilo record of 147 miles an hour. On the course here today, you're going to see them running about 115 to 118. They'll run on pump gasoline, carbureted engines, basically stock. The engines of preference are the Ford 460 or the 454 Chevy.
Well, there's 5 drivers starting in heat number 1, beginning alphabetically with Bud Burns out of Seattle, Washington, driving Shady Lady. Second is Ken Muscatel driving for Muscatel Marine. He also out of Seattle, and he is driving a capsule boat. And Ken Sides was driving the Aquaholic, his third. Moving on to 4th place is Terry Troxel, who'll be driving Windrift out of Tacoma, Washington. And rounding things off is Dave Vilwalk, who'll be driving for Sunset Chevrolet Special. He'll be driving boat number 400. Drivers coming out of the milling area now as the fans come close to the beach to watch the start of this race as they come down the front straightaway. 5 of the most exciting Formula Mercruiser 7 liters anywhere in the country heading down for the start-finish line. And we're underway, and it looks like it's Terry Troxel out of Tacoma, Washington in the black boat coming down into first place. He's holding his lane, as on the inside it's Ken Muscatel in the white boat out of Seattle, Washington, trying to hug the inside route. And on the outside, Dave Vilwalk. So you've got 3 boats battling for first place as they go down into turn number 1 and now down the back straightaway, Mike. And you can see this boat by Ken Muscatel, the lightest in the field, bouncing around.
Steve, that boat is getting really bent out of shape there. It's hitting that rough water, and that is a light boat. It is a 6-liter boat. They are allowed to run in this class, and you'll notice that F is the class designation.
And we've got a problem already. It looks like it's Terry Troxel who had grabbed the lead originally in the race. The man from Tacoma, Washington, had the cowling blown off that boat as he went off into turns number 3 and 4. And here we see him coming down that front straightaway.
He lost the cowl. It looked like he stuck it in the turn. The boat hooked a little bit, and it tore the cowling off.
Well, is this going to slow up his aerodynamics with that cowling missing in the rear?
It is definitely going to affect the performance with the cowling missing. The boat is not going to perform the way it should with the cowling on.
Mike, we've got not only the Formula Mercruiser 7 liters in here, we've got a sprinkling of a couple of Formula Mercruiser 6 liters. Tell us the advantage that maybe 6 liters may have in this race.
Well, normally the 6 liters would not have an advantage, but with the course being so small, the 6 liters are a little bit smaller. They're 18-foot boats. They only weigh 1,600 pounds and use a small block engine. So on this short course, they're a little bit faster.
And it's working out well for Ken Muscatel. He is our leader. He's driving a Formula Mercruiser 6-liter boat. There you see Terry Troxel, who had a problem after he had grabbed the lead early on in the race. He spun out and he continues on. He is currently in 3rd place. And we get a chance to see down the front straightaway the battle for 3rd between Terry Troxel to your right and Ken Sides driving Aquaholic from Tacoma, Washington, who is currently in 4th. And what a beautiful view we have here from Burley, Idaho, as they go on this very last lap. There's our leader on the backstretch. He's got only 1/2 lap left to go. Ken Muscatel, who's driving an unusual capsule boat, Mike.
Yes, this is it's new this year. The capsule was built by Dave Vilwalk, who's in 2nd place here. And it offers a 5-point harness. It straps the driver in, won't allow him to be thrown out of the boat if he should have an accident.
And there's the man that built the capsule in 2nd place, but our winner coming across the line is Ken Muscatel from Seattle, Washington. He takes the checkered flag, so the clinical psychologist from Seattle comes up with a victory. And Dave Vilwalk from Sumner, Washington, finishing a close 2nd. But here is our battle for 3rd place. Terry Troxel out of Tacoma, Washington, taking the outside route. He's battling off Ken Sides from Tacoma, who's trying to hang on the inside. He's got a shorter route to go. You look off on your left, and it's Terry Troxel, who is having to go a little bit farther on the race course, but it looks like he's got the momentum coming off the corner. And Troxel comes home in 3rd place with Ken Sides to his left, coming home in 4th. Quite a great race here, Mike.
Well, I'll tell you, Ken, he got bent out of shape a couple of times, but he kept control for a big first heat win.
There you see Dave Vilwalk, who built his capsule, coming home in 2nd place. And there are your standings after the first heat here of the Formula Mercruiser 7 liters. Ken Muscatel, the winner. Dave Vilwalk was 2nd, and Terry Troxel was in 3rd. As we look farther down the lineup, Ken Sides finished in 4th. And Bud Burns, driving Shady Lady, finished in 5th. Well, as the boats head back into shore after an exciting first heat, the fans along the beach giving them a big cheer. We have a chance to go down and talk to the Director of Tourism and Travel here for the beautiful state of Idaho. He's with Wally Shaver.
Chuck, I've always heard that Idaho is one of the best kept secrets in the U.S., and there's certainly no question about it. It's a beautiful state, and you've got a tremendous race going here today.
Exactly. There's a lot of things going on in the state. It's a great place to be and go out and recreate and have fun, and events like this are going to make more people aware of exactly what's available here. It's surprising that a lot of people don't associate water with Idaho, but in fact we have more lakes than any of the 11 western states. So events like this are very suitable for the state of Idaho.
We'll be back to this beautiful state as the fans enjoy themselves. We've got more racing action coming your way. The Formula Mercruiser 5 liters are next. We'll be back with that right after this. Steve Michael and Mike Butler welcoming you back to the Snake River here in Burley, Idaho for the 11th annual Burley Regatta. And as we get set for Formula Mercruiser 5-liter heat number 2 action, Mike, we've got to look at for the drivers the situation. The drivers that finished in first in the first few places, not a bad situation to be as we look at the lineup and where they finished in that first heat. But now in the second heat, the drivers that finished on the bottom end, they may have to hang it out a little bit more.
Well, it's a whole new ball game. Everybody's going to be going for the start, whether they were in the bottom of the pack or in the top. And I'll tell you what, Jerry Dillinger is going to be going for the inside, and he's got to hit that clock right on the money to take a first and second heat.
And on the other hand, the man who finished 6th, Wally Johnston, is going to have to really hang it out to try to move back up. He will need a victory here to even get any kind of contention on trying to win the overall championship here this afternoon. As the boats come down now, they get set in their lanes, and they start to pick up the pace. It looks like the pack has come just a tad early. They haven't opened up the throttle on these boats. The boats now stretching out here.
They're early, Steve.
And we're waiting as they come down to reach the start-finish line. And now they start to pick up the speed. Here we go as they come across the start-finish line, and we're underway for heat number 2. And Mike, it looked like a confusing start for some boats, actually going slow while others were speeding up. I think some of them jumped the line a little bit early and started to back off. What do you think?
Well, Steve, it looks a little early to tell you, but I think there's a couple boats that got a little head of the game and got a little too excited and missed the gun.
Beautiful shot of the rooster tails. Here we try to pick up the lead as they come racing down that back straightaway. And it looks like it's Ken Dryden out of Seattle, Washington, grabbing the lead. Dryden, who finished second in that first heat, and there you can see the speed as they come off the corners.
Well, Dryden's really keeping his foot in it going through that turn. He took it a little wide, kept the speed up. He's accelerating down the front stretch right now, and he really doesn't quite know yet if anybody jumped the gun on that start. We here know that David Leach and Richard Hallett jumped the gun, but Dryden doesn't.
Well, then how do you try to convey to a driver while he's out there on the race course that he has been disqualified?
They really don't know officially until the end of the race on who really jumped the gun, if anybody.
Well, a man who's jumping all over his competition is Ken Dryden out of Seattle, Washington, who finished second in that first heat and is leading here in this second heat. You know, Mike, these drivers have to sit down in the pits and plan out their strategy. They've got to set their boat up in a particular way, and here in Burley, we're at 4,000 feet and it's a short course.
Well, there's a lot of variables in a short course like this, especially at this altitude, Steve. At this altitude, the engines are going to run a little richer, so they'll have to lean them down. And on this shorter course, they're going to have to run a smaller pitch propeller.
Well, we go into the final lap here of the Formula Mercruiser 5 liters for the afternoon, heat number 2. The battle going on for second place between 161 of Gene Bird out of Polson, Montana, and Wally Johnston, who finished 6th in the first heat, is battling for that second place spot. He's currently in 3rd driving the Mariner. And there on the left of your screen we watch David Leach, who is out of Federal Way, Washington, the rookie who is being tutored by his father of 33 years of racing experience, trying to help him out. They videotape each one of their races to try to fine-tune David, who is trying to battle his way up in this hydroplane division. So David Leach, who finished 3rd in the first heat, is going as fast as he can as he tries to hold off a competitor. He does not know that he's been disqualified, Mike. That's going to be tough on him.
Yeah, it is, but I think that he probably really knows that he did jump the gun because he was pretty early.
And there's your overall winner, Ken Dryden, coming across the line, picking up the victory out of Seattle, Washington, driving Terminator. And coming across second is boat number 161, Gene Bird out of Polston, Montana, driving Locomotion. Of course, the way these two heats work, Mike, boats are awarded points based on their order of finish in each heat, and the driver accumulating the most points in 2 heats of racing is declared the overall winner. So winning a single heat does not assure a driver of winning the race.
That's right, Steve. I know there's one upset Jerry Dellinger because he ran a strong race that first heat, and to come back and take a fourth that second heat, that just destroyed his chances for the overall win.
And the rookie David Leach, who did very well in that first heat, was disqualified, of course, and he doesn't finish in the top order where he wanted to finish. So now let's go down to the overall champion. He's with Wally Shaver.
It was a tight start. There was a lot of boats going in together into that first turn. What was your concern at that point?
It's a real tight squeeze and try not to run over anybody, but be the first to the corner and be the first one through. You usually have the race buttoned up from there.
It was a close race through the first lap. After that, you began to pull away. Were you aware of the closeness?
I wasn't looking back.
As long as you can see open water, everything's fine.
That's it. We were trying to make up a lot of seconds, so we just went for it.
Well, it's a good money race for you, eh?
Yeah, it's the best.
Congratulations on winning the 5-liter.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
A very happy driver of the Terminator, Ken Dryden out of Seattle, Washington, picking up the overall win. We'll be back for the start of the 7-liter final when we return right after this. Welcome back to Burley, Idaho, and while the drivers and crews of the Formula Mercruiser 7-liters are making final preparations for heat number 2, we've got a chance to talk to a very entertaining woman who has been instrumental in giving away the now famous mink coat, Martha Moyle.
You're helping the Tourism Bureau of Idaho because you're a direct influence on bringing boats into the Burley Regatta because of a special prize that you're giving away.
That's right. This is something that we enjoy tremendously. Lee, my husband, whom I believe you have seen in a previous interview, used to race boats, but his first love has always been mink farming. And the more he loved it, the more involved he got with mink farming. And before he knew it, he not only didn't have time to race, but then he didn't have time to go to other boat races. And he always felt like he wanted to see at least one very good race happen someplace. He talked his brother Don Moyle, who races, still does, into trying to talk some of his boater friends to come to Burley to have a race. In order to entice the people to come and race in Burley, we decided that we would offer a mink coat as a prize to the winner. This is going to be our 10th mink coat that we give away this year, and I have to say that it worked because we get to see the best race of the year right here in Burley, Idaho, and we're very proud of that.
They're very proud of their race here. It's the 11th annual Burley Regatta here in Burley, Idaho, and as these 7-liter boats have made their way onto the course, Ken Muscatel out of Seattle, Washington is going to have to be stopped, Michael, for anybody to catch him. He had the lightest boat out there in heat number 1, and he really dictated the course.
Well, it looks like Ken's going to be the one to beat the second heat, although Vilwalk is running pretty good. Same boat, same kind of boat, so with a good start, Vilwalk may be able to catch him.
And maybe Ken Sides will come back with a little bit more determination. He wants to get up there quicker in the standings and finish up a little higher.
Also, Terry Troxel, you know, he even with that cowling missing, he did seem pretty consistent that first heat, so he may be one to look for this heat, even though he was missing the cowl.
A large field of boats as we get set here as they come down the front straightaway. Drivers picking their lane, looking for the ideal time to hit the start-finish line. The wall of spray begins as these 2,000-pound boats come toward the start-finish line, reaching speeds of 140 miles an hour as they cross the start-finish line and head off into turn number 1. Mike, you know, the fans just had a chance to see the 5-liters, now the 7-liters out there. Tell us a little bit about the differences between the two boat classes.
Well, they look very similar on the water except for the size. The 5-liters, you know, they're 16-foot boats. They're a little lighter, 700-800 pounds lighter than the 7-liters. Price-wise, you know, you're looking at about $20,000 for Mercruiser 5-liter, where the 7s, you know, you're at a minimum of $30,000.
Well, you see Terry Troxel out there out of Tacoma, Washington. He lost the top part of his cowling back in heat number 1, but he is doing well here in heat number 2 as he takes the inside route. Great shot there by our camera as you see the drivers set up for the turn as they come down this front straightaway. And we see them go by. There are people standing up. Those are the corner judges, and they're there to help out in the rescue team.
I'm surprised Troxel, he got such a good start there. He is still ahead of Muscatel, and even with that cowl missing, he's running very well just because he got a good start.
Muscatel, the clinical psychologist who has a new boat out here. It's the lightest one on the course, and he's been able to find the pins here in this course in Burley, Idaho. A narrow course, and there it looks like Troxel is trying to cut him off on the outside, but he's got a farther route to go. It looks like Muscatel has got the favored inside route as they battle coming out of turn number 3 and 4.
Definitely he's got the inside edge, and he's probably going to get by in this lap here. He's got a little bit more acceleration out of that turn.
From a long panoramic shot, you get a chance to see this wall of spray as they come by, and here comes Ken Muscatel as he just powers by Terry Troxel and into first place, a not unfamiliar position. He was there in that first heat. Let's see how he comes through turns number 1 and 2.
Look at how Muscatel keeps into that turn. He's nice and tight. Troxel comes wide, and there's no way that he's going to keep Muscatel off.
Well, you see that wall of spray there as we watch some of the back markers come through, and that's Daniel Long, and he's got a problem. Long flips the boat as he dived into a hole. It looks like he barrel rolled. And he's swimming in the water. He seems to be all right as the boat is upright. Michael, what exactly do you think happened on this?
Well, it's hard to say, Steve. If we take a look at the replay here, it looks like the boat is running fairly well down the backstretch. He's getting ready to set up for the turn. And it looks like that right sponsor got a little airborne, and the back end or the tail started to swap ends and then just came around on him and barrel rolled and snapped him right out of it.
Well, with this happening and Daniel Long being in the water, they have stopped the race. There they are helping up into the rescue boat. And since this happened on the 3rd and final lap, they have shortened the race and declared Ken Muscatel the winner, as Ken wins both the first and second heats this afternoon, dominating the proceedings here in the Formula Mercruiser 7 liters. And Mike, as we take a look at the final standings in heat number 2, you have to say Ken Muscatel did a great job this afternoon in this new boat.
Well, Ken had his act together today. He had his starts down beautiful. Although that second heat, Troxel got by him on the start, but he caught him on the second lap, got by him for the big win in the second heat and the overall victory.
And down on the dock is our own Wally Shaver with the very happy Ken Muscatel.
In that first lap, you came around and had an extremely strong showing in the second corner over here.
Yeah.
And it was very similar to what you did in the first lap, because all of a sudden you caught up to Terry and moved beyond him.
Well, the boat runs real good in the corners, in the tight corners. It's a good boat in real tight course like this, and it just suited the boat real well.
You prefer a short course over a long?
Yeah, generally speaking, though I prefer a course where I can win as opposed to where I can't. So.
Well, we've got the exciting K-Racing Runabouts coming up next for their final heat of the day. We've got one more race for you, so don't go away. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to beautiful Burley, Idaho, and the fans are standing as we're getting set for heat number 2 of the main event for the KRR Racing Runabouts coming up. But first, Mike, let's talk about the semi-main that took place earlier this afternoon.
Well, the way the KRRs work, they take their 8 fastest qualifiers of the eliminations and run them in the main event. The semi-main consists of the second 8 fastest boats, and they'll run for a piece of the prize money.
And Mike Patterson was the man who came up with the overall victory. Mike Newt's right behind him, and Bob Long was third. Some quality drivers that didn't make the main feature here this afternoon.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike Newt is a darn good driver, and I'm surprised he didn't make it in the main event.
And Dale Hernandez of West St. Paul, Minnesota, finishing up in 6th. That we have a chance here to look at some of the racing action. It was very close today. And the way the drivers have been running it all afternoon, you've got to get in that first corner first to get the clear water, and from there you can get the advantage. A very unusual back straight here at Burley, a picturesque scene. Actually, families sitting out on their backyard watching the race course. As we get set now for the final heat, the final main here with the KRRs. There you see George Nordling. He came up with a big victory in heat number 1. Bill Padgett was second, George Woods was third, and I got a feeling, Mike, these same 3 drivers are going to be battling for first here, and possibly maybe 1 or 2 other drivers. It could be wide open in the second heat.
Well, you can't count any of the drivers out. George Woods is running strong. Ron Mad Dog Bolton, he's just running super.
Well, Bolton has been the KRA High Points champion for 3 years, 81, 82, and 83, and even Roger Glover, who spun out in that first heat, he's ready to go. As the drivers get set, they come down on the backstretch. They'll be making the turn as they set up their lanes here on the parade lap. A very important procedure for these drivers is get where you want to be in that first corner. And there on the outside, you had a chance to see a man who uses a wing on his boat, and that is George Woods, who finished third. Now as the drivers come around in the front stretch, in front of this large crowd here in Burley, Idaho, everybody's standing as the drivers experiencing rough waters coming down. As they start to pick up the pace, they'll reach 144 miles an hour as they come down the start-finish line. And it's the red boat of Roger Glover who jumps out into the lead on the outside, and he's being challenged by Ron Bolden in the Kelrod Racing Special, the yellow boat on the inside. Well, it's up to Glover. He's going to have to go a longer distance, Michael, to make this first corner. We'll see what happens. Let's find out if Bolden can maybe cut him off here and grab the lead as they go through the backstretch.
Well, it looks like Bolton's got the inside, and that's where you want to be in that first turn. With all those boats coming through, you get that inside line, and it's tough to beat.
And look at Ron Bolden jumping off to a tremendous lead on the backstretch. The man out of Long Beach, California, who was named in 1983 the Engine Builder of the Year in the KRA, is showing everybody today that his engine is right on tune. He's got at least a 2-second lead on the field, only one lap into this race.
Well, he came through turn 4 and just stuck the boat a little bit. That slowed him down. We'll see if that hurts him later on in the race.
Well, we'll see what happens now as they battled 3 boats for that second place position. Glover has dropped back into 4th place. There's Bolden going very close to the pin as he comes through turn number 1. He's trying to take the inside route, the shortest distance between a couple of points, and he's working on that right now. Hopefully his strategy will work all the way through for him.
Well, I know Nordling was very close to him in 2nd place, and George Woods was moving up into 3rd.
1,250 horsepower coming down that back stretch. Ron Bolden hanging on as he sets the boat up. He starts to back off and then make the turn. You see him come through the pins. It looks like there he took it a little bit too tight. He may have lost some time there.
Yes, the boat hooked and it slowed him down. That allowed 2nd, 3rd place to get a little bit closer to him.
And 2nd and 3rd place drivers George Nordling and George Woods are definitely closing in on our leader. Ron Bolden, who made a mistake coming out of turns 3 and 4, is now paying the penalty as he's being chased down by the 2 drivers, one from Oregon, George Nordling, who won the first heat, right behind him now, and the man with the wing on the back of his boat, George Woods out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They start the final half of this race here in this final lap on the back stretch. It's Bolden hanging on to a very small lead. You can see him in the yellow boat. Here comes Nordling on the outside. He starts to weave and waver as he gets up close to the driver from Long Beach, California. Nordling now has to back off. Now he steps up. Now George Woods gets on the outside. We're going to have a 3-way battle to the finish. Now Bolden with it. He makes the turn. He takes the inside route. It looks like Woods was forced wide as Nordling pushed him across. Here's 3 abreast. They come down toward the checkered flag. It's going to be a photo finish, and coming across the line, it looks like they gave the win to Ron Bolden, as coming across the line in greater speed was George Woods, but it was Bolden who just nipped him at the finish line, and Bolden from Long Beach, California picks up the win here in main event heat number 2 for the K-Racing Runabouts. What an exciting event that was, Mike.
Oh, that was a beautiful finish. I mean, you couldn't ask for any better of a heat. 3 boats right there at the finish, all at the same time.
And it shows you how evenly matched these boats are. Ron Bolden making one small mistake out on turns 3 and 4 coming into that last lap, and he was almost eaten up alive by George Nordling and George Woods coming at the finish line. Well, Wally Shamer's down in the pits with our overall winner. It's George Nordling out of Milwaukee, Oregon.
George, I don't think there's any question that is what racing is all about with that spectacular finish between the 3 of you.
Yeah, they made me work pretty hard for that one, and I think to the end of the day, you get kind of tired, and sometimes you wonder, how fast you got to go and who do you have to beat. But yeah, I think it worked out, I guess, for me.
Well, the racing is over here from Burley, Idaho this afternoon, and we'll be back to recap it all and find out who won the mink coat and meet the governor when we return right after this. Welcome back to Burley, Idaho, and the award ceremonies. And one of the guest class drivers, Paul Grichard of the Pro Comp Division, and his wife Becky took home the coveted mink coat today. And on hand for the festivities was Governor Cecil Andrus.
Governor, this was just a tremendous event for the state of Idaho. It has to be very pleasing to you to see the outstanding crowd that you had here in Burley.
Well, the people from Idaho participated, and also a lot of out-of-staters came in. They brought this tremendous array of boats in here to give us a competition today. The weather was good, everybody had a good time, and I think it was very, very successful. Yes, it is good for the state of Idaho. And with your activities, a lot of people will see us in a different light other than just the Idaho potato.
I've often heard that Idaho is the best kept secret in the U.S. You obviously want to open that up a little bit, eh?
Well, that's right. We are in a growth period now. We do have an additional amount of industry that is looking at this state, but the people live here because of the lifestyle. It's a good place to live. You look at that river and the lake out there and the boating that we have, the good fishing, the outdoors. The people enjoy the recreation aspect. So, yes, Idaho is what America was.
I want to thank co-host Mike Butler, pit reporter Wally Shaver, and the officials of the American Powerboat Association for doing such a great job today. I'm Steve Michael saying so long from Burley. The race today was brought to you by Mercury Performance Products, the world's leading name in stern drive and inboard power. Ford Power Products, supplier of marine-based engines. And by ICOM America, the official marine radio of the NICS.